So welcome to the first episode of Everyday Saris. I would like to remind you all that I am not an expert in Indian culture. I am not an expert in saris. I'm just someone who has an Indian background and is exploring saris and wants to share that exploration with you. My name is Leela Sinha. My father is Indian and came to North America in approximately 1962. My mom is a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed California girl, and I grew up in the United States. I've made some trips to India. I don't speak Hindi. I have a whole side of my family that about half their conversations are conducted in a language I can't understand. But in recent years, I've had the opportunity to spend more time in India than I did when I was younger, and as a result, I've gotten more interested in Indian culture. So part of that process has been becoming really interested in saris, and the first step in being interested in saris is learning how to put them on. I'm going to show you today how to put on a sari in the more normal way, in the drape that most people use, with the undergarment that most people use. I am going to be wearing a t-shirt and not a choli blouse. The traditional shirt is a crop top that's about this big, this long, and has short sleeves, and generally a scoop neck and fastens down the front, although there are variations. Back in the day, there were definitely choli blouses that fastened in the back that were more flexible in terms of their fit, but right now, that's what's considered standard. So, this is a petticoat. This one was my grandmother's, so it's a little worn, and it's really just a gored drawstring skirt made out of cotton. And the drawstring part is important. You can't actually get away with, well, you can, but you have to modify things. You can't actually get away with a non-drawstring one because the drawstring is the structural basis for your sari. So if you don't tie this in this way of wearing saris, if you don't tie this drawstring tightly enough, your clothes fall off. So you want to tie it properly, and a little tighter than a Western person would probably ordinarily want a drawstring. This sari is one that I got from Bengal Looms. I mentioned in the last video. Bengal Looms is an American purveyor of saris. They import them. They do some of the final tailoring work, which I'll talk about in another video. But they take care of it for you, so you don't have to find a tailor who can do picot and fall, which again I'll talk about later. And it's brand new. I'm super excited about these. I bought 4 more khadi cloths. So khadi is hand spun, which means that this garment was spun and woven by hand, probably. Khadi is hand spun. It's not necessarily hand woven, but generally it is. I'm looking at the selvage on this, and it's very even. So I kind of think that maybe I do some hand weaving in my spare time. Well, it's not that even. You can often tell by the selvage whether a garment was hand woven or not. I think this is probably hand spun and hand woven. So you can see that it's about 42, 43 inches wide, the fabric, and it has a border on one side and a less ornate border on the other side. That's common, although not universal. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how tall we are, because not everybody is the same height, and you can't see my feet in this video. I'm afraid it's just a little bit too, it's just tipped up a little too much. Let me see if I can fix that, actually. There, now you can see my toes. So, so what you're aiming for in a normal standard, we'll get into variations, there are variations, but in a normal standard sari drape, what you're aiming for is just skimming the floor. Now, I'm standing on a soft surface, so it's a little hard for me to judge, but I'm going to guess. And contemporary people wearing saris are now playing a lot with how long the sari has to be, because skimming the floor is not always practical. But here we are. I'm short. I'm 5'2". So even though a lot of my height's in my legs, I'm still short. So I'm going to tuck in about this much. My hand is 7.5 inches, so I'm probably tucking in about 8.5 inches maybe even 9 inches. It's hard to tell. So I'm going to wrap this sari around my back, and often if the sari is piled up on a bed or surface near you, you'll turn yourself rather than turning the sari around you, because that's just sort of easier and more practical. And I'm going to tuck it in all the way around. Tucking is a very important part of sari wearing, but it's also a little bit like it's an art. So I'm tucking. Now I'm come to the place where I've gone approximately all the way around once. And now it's time to do the pleats. But before you do the pleats, a lot of people get confused by this, and I didn't know this until my aunts showed me. But in order to judge the appropriate number of pleats, or the appropriate amount of fabric to take up with the pleats, you really have to wrap the sari all the way around your body again, and decide how far down you want it to hang. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into that decision, but right now we're just going to stick with about that far, and I'll talk about it later, either in another video or in something else. And now I'm going to make the pleats. So all of this fabric is extra, essentially, and that's going to make it possible for me to walk. I'm fond of walking. One of the challenges with a lot of draped fabric clothing, including lungis, which are known as sarongs in other parts of the country and more commonly in the United States, is that when people drape them, they don't drape any leeway. They don't leave themselves any leeway. So what I'm doing here, you might have to zoom in, is I'm actually pleating around my fingers. This is the way that everybody I know, all of my Indian relatives who make pleats. And it's a very particular hand gesture. It warrants practicing. As you practice, your fingers will stretch a little more and you'll be able to make bigger pleats. Or at least that was true for me. At first, I couldn't make big pleats at all. And, you can guess. Now, I'm expecting about 6 pleats here, and I've got 6 pleats and a little bit of extra. So I'll just tuck that little bit of extra back like this. I may pull it out later, we'll see. And then you have to do a bit of fussing. I wish I had another camera that was peering over my shoulder, because the fussing part is actually kind of critical to getting a good sari drape. But I don't. So basically what I'm doing here is making sure that the stack of pleats, the exposed edge of the stack of pleats, is carefully lined up and is tidy, because that's going to affect how the pleats look when you tuck it in, and it's going to affect how they behave through your day. You may end up re-pleating at some point during the day, but you kind of hope not to. And I always wondered how people got pleats to fan out so beautifully. Well, as it turns out, if you just pleat them flat and line up the edges with each other pretty much exactly, they fall in that beautiful way all by themselves. You might have to untuck a little bit here on the right as you're getting them to hang properly, and adjust and fuss. Don't feel like you're doing it wrong if you have to fuss with your pleats. You totally have to fuss with your pleats, or they don't look good. And sometimes you don't care, right? So part of my point with this series is that it's an everyday garment. People wear it in all kinds of different ways. People get on Instagram and they look fabulous and they look coiffed and they put on their makeup and they look super elegant and they've knife pleated their pellu and they've knife pleated their pleats. That's wonderful, but that's not the only way people wear saris, and I think it's misleading. So part of my point is to show you what an everyday sari looks like, which means that you might not always fuss with your pleats. If you're in a hurry and nobody's going to look at you and you're home alone, you pleat it, it's good enough, you go on with your day. Unless you're one of those wonderful people, I'm not one of them, who needs a full face of makeup and looks really elegant at home. If you're one of those people, you might fuss with your pleats anyway. My aunt is one of those people. My father's younger sister is incredibly elegant and talented dancer, and beauty matters a lot to her. So you'll see what I just did there. I pulled my drawstring forward through the sari, and then I tucked the sari pleats all the way down in. And you can sort of skimp on this process, but I don't advise it. And then I'm going to just sort of mess with it. Now, this is a very lightweight cotton. It's lighter weight than some of my other khadi cloth cottons, which means that it's made from very, very fine thread, and it's fairly loosely woven. One of the advantages of that is that once those pleats are tucked in, and I'm satisfied with them and their location, when I run my hand over the top of the pleats like this, it makes them look ironed. Just like that, there's a crease. That also means that just like that, there's a crease for all other reasons. So that's worth considering. So now I have the pallu. That was just the pleat part. Now I have the pallu. Now, traditionally, I promised you traditional, right? Traditionally, you take that and you pleat it like this. Back and forth along the short edge. So the waist pleats are along the long edge, but the shoulder pleats are along the short edge. And then you shake them out, and again, with a lightweight cotton, it's very easy. They're very, it's very well behaved. And then you just move that, transfer that up to your shoulder, pull this out a little bit, and you're wearing a sari. Now, I made some interesting decisions in this particular set of clothing. I'm wearing a black t-shirt under a yellow sari. That, I mean, if you don't care if it shows through, that's great. If you want it to not show through, then you should probably wear a lighter colored shirt under a lighter colored sari. But I'm going for a more casual look, so I don't really care. It's obvious I'm wearing a black t-shirt. You're not going to be fooled by that. I can sort this pallu out in a bunch of different ways. Traditionally, you want it to cover both bust points. If your nipples are, even though you're wearing a shirt, if your nipples are showing, somebody will think that you're dressed wrong. That's changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years, but I did actually get scolded by an auntie in a jewelry store in Mumbai for not having my sari draped the way she thought it should be draped, which is okay, fine. And then you can just kind of tweak it, pull it out, push it around. A cotton sari will probably stay on your shoulder if you stand upright. Postural training in a sari is awesome because it forces you to stand up. Because if you don't stand up, it falls off your shoulder. If you don't hold your shoulders back, it falls off your shoulder. It's a great reminder to keep yourself upright. I will show you one variation on this drape, which is that if you want the drape to stay on your body, you can take the edge of your pallu, pull it around, and just tuck it right in your waist there. I suspect that this is actually the original way. There are a lot of old artwork and there's a lot of good photographic and artistic evidence for this style of wearing this drape. This drape is generally referred to as the Nivi drape, N-I-V-I, and my understanding is that it originates in Andhra Pradesh. If you want an overview of all the different ways, or many of the different ways, not all of them, to wear a sari, you can go to a site called Border and Fall. They have a whole series. It was sponsored by Google. It's like a cultural preservation thing. It's fabulous. I'll talk more about all of those aspects of sari wearing later. I don't want this video to run too long, but there you have it. The sari over a petticoat and a shirt, although traditionally it would be with a choli blouse, which is a hook and eye woven, and this is just a t-shirt. And I'm wearing my panda socks, which is not a particularly going out fashion decision, but it's worth noting that socks can change the way the sari moves around your ankles. So if you notice that your sari is getting tangled a lot around your feet, sometimes taking off the socks can make a difference, or wearing a slick shaft boot could make a difference. One more word in this first video is I know some people are going to ask me, can I wear sari? I'm not Indian. That's a very complicated question. I will get into it later. But there's a lot of disagreement in the source land in India. There's a lot of disagreement in the diaspora. And so ultimately, you're going to have to make a decision that works for you. And how that plays out, is probably the subject of several PhD theses. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is the first episode of hopefully many. This is one of my brand new saris from Bengal Looms, and it's really delightful. It's soft, it's easy to move in, and I think it's going to stay put all day. I'm really excited to have a day in it. Thank you.